Hey guys, so I commonly get the question, is it too late to buy Bitcoin? And to this, the short answer is no. The current price now is around $10,000 US, but there's a long way left to go. So, one common reason people ask this is they're thinking, oh, I might not be able to buy a full Bitcoin. And, compared to what you could have bought years and years ago, now have I missed the boat? Well, just because you can't buy a full Bitcoin now doesn't mean you can't get into the game still. That you can still buy a fraction of a Bitcoin, and that once you really appreciate how much more growth there is left in this thing, that you'll still got a lot of gain to come. So a few years ago, Bitcoin was just $20. And back then it would have been crazy to think, oh hey, how quickly Bitcoin would hit $10,000. So in the same way, you've got to imagine what is the ultimate price of Bitcoin going to be if it's successful. So to just throw some back of the envelope numbers, global wealth estimates are around $280 trillion. The maximum total supply of Bitcoin is 21 million Bitcoins. Now, it's estimated that about 4 million of those have been lost. So you could do a rough calculation and say, well, 280 trillion divided by 21 minus 4, which is 17. So 280 trillion divided by 17 million coins gives you an estimate, roughly $16 million per coin. Now, that's in today's terms, and again, this cycle might take years and decades to play out. But that's the ultimate number you're looking at. So if you thought, well, I can buy a fraction of this thing that's going to someday be worth millions per coin, well, yeah, I still think it's not too late to buy. So why Bitcoin? Well, it all comes down to what is the most scarce thing. So economically, other than your human time and effort that you can put into something, the most economic scarce thing out there is Bitcoin. Now, why is that? Well, you've got to look at the alternatives. So the most common alternative might be the US dollar or the Australian dollar or the pound or the yen or the euro. But all of these fiat monies have been created into a system where printing more paper money has been enabled. And that's precisely what has happened. So people who've stored their wealth in these monies have historically lost 4, 5, or even more percent per year that they kept money in that. Whereas if you compare that against, let's say, gold is inflated at a slightly lesser rate because of new supply of gold being found. But they can still find more supply of that. And it's still vulnerable to future supply shocks. So let's say gold now is really scarce, but if people found an asteroid with a lot of gold, well, what's that gonna do to the value of gold? Now compare this to Bitcoin, which is mathematically secured. So using cryptography, the supply of Bitcoin has been capped at 21 million. There will never be more than that. And so that's one of the reasons why Bitcoin is more scarce than any other thing. And in just a few years, Bitcoin's inflation rate will be something like 2%, and it will be less and less and less and less going on after that. Whereas with all the other types of monies, they can be created, more of those can be created. So you've got to factor that into like the long-term analysis of which one is the most scarce thing. What would be the best way to store your value into the long run? Because this is the long game. Here's another thing to think about. There's 35 million millionaires on this earth. There will never be more than 21 million Bitcoins. That means even if every millionaire wanted one full Bitcoin, they couldn't get it. That's literally how scarce this thing is. So now, Bitcoin and its underlying philosophy, why are these things important? Well, that's because in our human history, we've always had someone or some group who could centrally control or inflate the money, whether that was to debase the money, or whether that was to centrally to confiscate the gold, or it was to centrally to set up a system that enables central inflation of the money, such that you storing your wealth in that money results in you losing some of that purchasing power over time. One of those systems has pretty much always existed, or there's always been an incentive for someone to set themselves up into that position where they can be the one to inflate the money. But Bitcoin changes all of this because nobody controls Bitcoin, and it's really, really scarce, as we've mentioned earlier. So Bitcoin as a sound money challenges all of these ideas, and that's why it's such a massive innovation and a really just a huge step forward. So now the next thing that people ask about is, well, hey, if it was so easy to happen with Bitcoin, what if Bitcoin is the MySpace and Facebook is still to come, right? Making an analogy to social networks. But what's the key thing? What's the key difference here? Well, that is network effects. So while it's easy for someone to just copy paste and change the name and make a new altcoin, they cannot copy paste the network effects that are surrounding and that are taking root around Bitcoin. So you look at how many users there are using Bitcoin. Well, more people use Bitcoin than any of the other currencies. They hold more people. There's more people holding it and storing more value in Bitcoin than the other currencies. There's more miners. There's more security in the network, and people want to build on the network that has the most security. The best developers are working on Bitcoin. They're the ones with the longest term focus as well. They're in this game for years. They're developing things that will be around even after they're dead, right? Compare this to some of these other altcoins which have a fly-by-night developer who leaves after a couple of years. Well, you don't want that. You want somebody who's there to maintain the project and is really planning out for the long run. There's the most number of exchanges that support Bitcoin, and within the crypto world, Bitcoin already is the reserve currency of sorts. Bitcoin also has futures and the most financial products supporting it. None of the other cryptocurrencies has a futures market or has a mainstream exchange like CME or CBOE. So that's another factor to think about there. So this thinking that Bitcoin is the MySpace is to misunderstand the nature of this open source software project to begin with, because the mission is to create sound money, and part of that is also to honor the original balances of people who bought into the best attempt so far, which is Bitcoin. And that's why we're now seeing some forks of Bitcoin, which is basically building on the sort of honoring the original balances that people held in Bitcoin to then go and create a new fork. But I'll make a separate video about the forks. But for now, it's just important to think of it more just as Bitcoin and the main Bitcoin chain. So now that I've mentioned all the above about this potential huge gain that could be made, but also the risk of loss, it's important that I point out here, don't be irresponsible, right? So if you have debts, if you have bills that you've got to pay, obviously don't put that money into Bitcoin, right? The way I think of this is more like a long-term play. You want to just regularly buy some. You want to do what's called dollar cost averaging. So you want to regularly buy some more Bitcoin and not emotionally rush in and rush out. And in doing that, you can just slowly but surely accumulate a Bitcoin position. And then in a few years, it's likely that Bitcoin will have risen just as it has done over the last 8 or 9 years, and it will be further on its journey to become the sound money of the world. So it's like that saying when people say, what was the best time to plant a tree 30 years ago? When's the next best time? Now. In the same way, that's how I would think of Bitcoin. Is it too late to buy Bitcoin? No. I'd say we're just getting started. Thanks, guys.